Hello, students. Today, I propose to bring some interpretations to our poem A Far Cry from Africa by Derek Walcott in 405. With that, we will be coming to an end of our discussion of Unit 2 of the Post-Colonial Literature course. A Far Cry from Africa, the title. You know, I would like to bring in two interesting points here, apart from the ones that you will come across in the internet materials. Internet materials, those that are available, they deal with Walcott's own racial ancestry, that he had both black and white grandparents. That is why his allegiance is divided, allegiance to England or allegiance to Africa, with which he will take side. However, my point is different. I would like to say that even without reference to this fact, we can have an interpretation of the poem in a general post-colonial sense, or even in a very general sense. Taking positions. There is a wonderful essay by Said on defiance and taking positions. In life, if you are a thinking person, you are faced with situations where you need to take sides. And it is not always easy for thinking persons to take sides. If you are, a person who will go with the masses, he will choose the majority side. If you are a hardcore ideologue belonging to any ideology, then also you'll follow your own party line, whatever it is. But if you are a genuinely thinking person like Walcott, then it becomes extremely difficult to choose sides, because things are, in most cases, are never a black and white choice. There is a gray matter everywhere. Now, another thing I would like to say is that this is the general post-colonial condition also. Whether we have a black and white ancestry in terms of our blood lineage, that is a different matter. But so far as our cultural upbringing is concerned, even the very fact that I am talking to you in English now is a kind of, a mixture which you couldn't avoid. To what extent it carry on with English? Only in the classroom or in textual discussion or beyond that, etc. What are the points when we switch back to our Indian cultural ethos, languages? These are always highly problematic. Even within India, they are not homogeneous. In metropolitan sites, you have one kind of discourses, opportunities, avenues. In rural areas, it's completely different. So that's why what Bhava calls hybridity in a way. Without Bhava's complications also we can understand that this is a hybrid situation. So from that point of view also, Walcott's poem has a lot of meaning. He himself a black poet writing in English, though he had divided ancestry. He says, where shall I turn? My blood divided in the vein. In spite of that, by and large, he is known as a black poet from the Caribbean islands. So now, when we go to the poem further, there is, and again another point, a kind of context. Any literary work generally has two things, time and space. I keep saying this again and again. Whether you approach this by the traditional race, milieu and moment kind of approach, or the Bakhtinian chronotype approach, based on which sides formulation overlapping territories intertwine histories. So on the one hand, there is spatiality of any work. On the other hand, there is temporality. This applies to all works actually, but here it is very important. Spatiality, space. Here the space is, it is on the one hand Africa, on the other hand Europe, two continents there. or England and Kenya to be more specific, we can say, but we'll follow the large patterns because he himself refers to Africa. So, and the time is of the 50s, and there is a specific incident called Mau Mau uprising which took place in Kenya. Mau Mau uprising, MAO. I will give links to Mau Mau uprising videos. It was a very violent movement which was directed at extirpating the white population from Kenya, whom the Mau Maus believed were intruders, the settlers, white settlers. So this is a violent movement, and then here mistakes prima facie, so far as the Mau Mau is concerned, is done by both sides. Violence against violence. The Mau Mau group doing one kind of violence, then the state doing another kind of violence, counter-insurgency. So where does an intellectual take side? Where does an intellectual stand, or with whom does it take side? We have in India an important vantage point, or important philosophy given by Gandhi. I am not exactly a Gandhian, but then the ideology of non-violence that he gave, possibly that could have been a solution to Walcott's dilemma. Anyway, that is probably beside the topic of the poem. So in the very first stanza, we see, the very first line, a wind is ruffling the tawny pelt of Africa. Which wind? Metaphorical wind of the Mau Mau rebellion or revolution. Kiku, quick as flies, batten upon the bloodstreams of the veldt, corpses are scattered through a paradise. Beautiful expression, corpses are scattered through a paradise. Think about Kashmir in India. At one point of time, it was known as the paradise on earth. But in the series of, insurgency, the terrorism and all those things, finally made it what it is today. Today things have improved, but corpses when terrorism was going on. We have faced this a number of times in Northeast, though the situation is relatively peaceful now. These are analogies to make you understand how these things are very relevant to us. A paradise becomes as if a procession of corpses. Then the exchanges represents the point of view of the colonel and the Mau Mau point of view. But then when we go a little further, though the Gandhian approach is not mentioned, but a possibility is indicated at by referring to the figure of Jesus, we can say. Look at the lines in second stanza. The violence of beast on beast is read as natural law, but upright man seeks his divinity with inflicting pain. Might is right. Beast over beast, whoever is more powerful will vanquish, eat up, control or dominate the less powerful. That is the natural law, nature. But then man has the ability to go beyond nature, to tolerate his pain or even take pain willingly on himself on behalf of others, which is the epitomized, it is said, in Jesus. We also have analogies in Indian every culture, so at Shiva drinking poison for it may be a mythological figure, but the idea is there. I believe in all cultures such figures are there. That is why possibly we are humans, we think ourselves to be better than animals, and possibly we are, with due respects to postmodernism and their critics of anthropocentrism, that we have the ability to be better. We can be demons also, we can be gods also. So angels and demons. Now it is there, so it is he is indicating that there is a possibility of transcendence. However, There is no end to the violence, it seems, in this land, in Kenya, and a child is hacked to death in bed, a white child. In violence, I mean in vengeance against that, series of violent incidents unfold, etc., etc. So detailings are there. You will go through the poem, you will understand the details, I am sure. You may take the help of it, but this is prima facie the matter. First of all, he introduces the concept of Kenya and Africa, which is now littered with corpses, dead bodies all over. Then there are two sides, as I referred to in one poem, analyze thesis and antithesis like that, but no synthesis is emerging, So he says that he in a way belongs to both sides, because we have already told about his mixed ancestry, and even without that, which is my point, all of us, whoever is reading and writing in English or doing things with English literature, in very many ways we are kind of exiles if we are serious about our business. So our allegiance, maybe our understanding of things is different from purely monocultural persons. So there are problems going on in Africa in the context of Mau revolution. Two sides fighting with each other, the natives and the Europeans. And then here is our Walcott, who feels he belongs to actually both the parties, and then it is extremely difficult for him to take sides. I, who am poisoned with the blood of both, where shall I turn, divided to the vein? I can remember only another quote, very similar, saying rather, from Hamlet: to be or not to be, that is the question. So here, where shall I turn? I belong to both. So here you may problematize theory. Bhabha and others, they celebrate exile, hybridity, etc. as a position of advantage, don't they? But here, it shows the other side of it, how difficult it is to belong to a divided identity, or even Amartya's multiple identities. But at times, when you make your choices, when you have to make choices in extreme cases, then it is rather difficult. So he says, I who have cursed the drunken officer of the British rule, how choose between this Africa and the English tongue I love? So here he is making it more generalized. English tongue he loves, though initially started in the last stanza with reference to mixed blood. So here the general trend, as I have been repeating with all of us, English educated person from the colonies, we love English tongue. Kamala Das has said, is her tongue, she wants to write in English, friends need not advise her. Or there's a term we use in ELT, etc., the chosen tongue. It's not the foreign tongue, not even the second language, but English is our chosen tongue. We feel ourselves more comfortable. I feel more comfortable in expressing ourselves in English, at least in certain matters. Or we can relate ourselves more readily to things and ideas in the English tradition. So maybe it is because of our training, whatever we have got. We have been largely, I'm speaking here about the English literature group across India. So our situation is very similar to Walcott. So the drunken officer of the British rule, he is cursed, but then again, can he choose Africa, or can he leave his English tongue? Extremely difficult. Choice is not made. How can I face such slaughter and be cool? How can I turn from Africa and leave? So I can neither remain silent, either slaughter that is going on, nor can I leave my English tongue. tongue, and you know, nor can I reject my African identity. That simply is a predicament. It's not that here again something theoretical that comes up that everything should have a solution. That is also our problem, we can say. We are conditioned to believe that, I'm going slightly beyond the text, that every problem should have a solution. No, that is our expectation. Things may not be like that. So let it remain like this. Someone may try to interpret it as his pro-African stance, finally taking the last line as evidence. I don't think it is as simple as that. Of course, subjective reading matters in poems. These are, after all, not documents or penal codes. Even penal codes are subject to scrutinies by lawyers, judges, so more so in a poem. So you cannot take sides. It is extremely difficult when your allegiances are divided, and I have tried to generalize it a little. Let me remind you, even when your allegiances are not divided, if you are a thinking man or a woman or thinking person rather, let's go beyond gender, it is extremely difficult. So the problem continues. Maybe Gandhism would have been an option, but then it did not occur there. I'd also request you to reread Leela Gandhi's Post-Colonial Theory, Critical Introduction. In the first chapter, she builds a kind of parallel between the Gandhian vision of anti-colonialism, which is non-violent, and the Fanonian vision of anti-colonial struggle. Here, the thing is more in line with Fanon. Or we can bring our Subhash Bose thing. So the Mau Mau uprisal was kind of Subhash Bose kind of thing, that armed rebellion against the colonizers. But finally, bloodshed, violence, death, both sides are affected. That hampers humanity at large. And finally, the poet cannot take side. You can also relate this to, in a slightly out of the what I can say, out of the trendy way, Keats, out of the trend, because Keats is not a very contemporary writer, but Keats' negative capability, the ability of a poet to remain in doubt, suspicion, etc., without sufficient reaching after facts and reason, Keats says. So maybe it's an exercise in negative capability. So finally, a far cry from Africa is this. Possibly, if you have listened to what I wanted to say closely, and if I have been able to make myself clear, though I did not make myself very clear, you have to decode certain things, then possibly you can relate to what is going on in contemporary world also. You see, very difficult, and we are still working for a solution. Please have a look at the videos that are shared below in the description section. With this, we come to an end of our discussion of Unit 2. We have already discussed progressive and insanities by Pioneer thoroughly, and then Eddie Hope also in our direct classes. And New York, I started there, I finished it here, and then now Derek Walcott will move on to Mimic Man slowly. Thank you.